Here's all the things about the Donald Trump assassination attempt that you might not have thought about. A critical thinking approach to the events of Saturday. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm in Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention that I was invited to, taking in everything. It's very interesting. But this is in light of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. And I wanted to share my thoughts, but it's kind of too complicated to put on Instagram. So I'm putting it on YouTube and putting it out as a podcast. Essentially, I want to take an Occam's razor approach to the assassination attempt. And in Occam's razor, what they say is don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to stupidity or ineptitude. So I took a couple of notes and I was thinking about this a lot. I've listened to some podcasts and talked to a lot of my friends who are snipers in the Army Rangers and did executive security and things like that with Blackwater and everything. And I've talked to them trying to get a handle of everything that's going on. Now, if it is ineptitude and it was known ineptitude, then it gets into the realm of malice. Because if you know that you can't do the job and you choose to do the job anyway, there is something in there that is either stupidity or, like, more than stupidity, it would be something along the lines of choosing to fail willingly. So, I'm going to share a little bit about what I don't think and then go into what I think happened. And I might not be right, but I believe that I'm on the pathway toward what's most likely to be true, which is also how I've been able to predict a lot of things that are happening in society accurately. So my wife and I came to Milwaukee and we got in an Uber, and the Uber driver in Milwaukee said, "I know what happened." And I said, "Oh, well, what happened?" She said, "Trump, to build his brand and everything and get a lot of people behind him, he paid a sharpshooter to shoot and just nick his ear." And right away I was like, well, are you familiar with shooting? And it was so interesting because my wife was kind of like, how is that possible? And kept asking me. I was like, babe, if she was saying she believed in unicorns, would you give that a second thought? And she's like, no. I was like, okay, well, that's what you have to think about this. To be able to shoot a moving target and nick the ear is literally impossible. So I don't take that with any kind of seriousness or anything like that. Just recently, there was it came out that there was an Iranian plot to assassinate Donald Trump. Now, do I think that the Iranians, paid off this pimply-faced 20-year-old to be a sleeper cell to take out Donald Trump? No, that doesn't make any sense either, especially when you know a little bit about Matthew Crooks and things along those lines. The ideas that are kind of pushed by more of the conservatives about the deep state, saying that the Secret Service were told to stand down and not attack him as a way to allow Donald Trump to be killed. Nearly all the military that I know are Donald Trump supporters. Nearly all. So I don't believe that a Secret Service agent who has pledged his life, to get on that rifle and protect the president would be told by some, faceless, nameless, bureaucrat or someone in the deep state to allow Donald Trump to be killed. That doesn't hold water either. I think that my friends in the military and the people that I know who hold those kinds of positions tend to be loyal to their job. They tend to want to do their job. So there's really two sides to this. One is the shooter side, and then one is the protective side. So onto the shooter side, Matthew Crooks. Is he a CIA asset? There's a commercial that came out of him, that he was in a BlackRock commercial, the big fund commercial. So was it one of these big funds that are trying to get rid of Donald Trump because he's going to go after corporate America and everything like that? He's going to take down the super elite. That doesn't hold a lot of water for me either. Is it possible? Yeah, things are possible. Like the JFK assassination, there's a lot of trickiness in there. There's a lack of transparency. So the idea that the CIA or that the deep state would push for an assassination attempt, that's plausible. It absolutely is. I mean, you look throughout history, our government has been involved in assassination and assassination attempts. But as you dive into learning more about Matthew Crooks, it seems more likely, Occam's razor, that he is a nihilistic, lost young man. And when you look at a lot of the mass shooters, a lot of them are just like Matthew Crooks. They are horribly bullied. A video came out of him being just like terribly bullied. People yanking on his pants in high school, saying, "Oh, these are leggings." He's like, "Please leave me alone, please leave me alone." So this kid, he looked like he was struggling with life in a lot of ways and didn't have a strong sense of meaning and purpose. And that tends to be who a lot of these mass shooters are. The way I try to explain mass shooters, the way I see it is, if you are really lost in life, you are one of these people that they call like an incel, you know, like he has trouble meeting girls, he has trouble succeeding in a whole bunch of ways, feels like he doesn't fit in and everything like that, is you feel like you don't have a purpose. When you're cleaning your house and you go, what is this thing? You just pick up some sort of widget and you go, and everyone goes, I don't know what that is. What does it do? I don't know what it does. You throw it away, because if you want to say that you are a good person, first you have to decide what a person is. You know, if you want to say that you're a good pillow, you have to decide what a pillow is. Well, it's soft, you can rest your head on it. So does it serve its purpose well? And if you're a person and you don't know what your purpose is, what your mission is, why you are here, then you feel like you are worthless. And a way to get some worth is to make your mark, to have a purpose. And it's very easy to have make a terrible impact on the world. It's very difficult to make a good impact on the world. I tell my students, you know, it's 11:30. By noon, you could be known by the whole world, or you could have a generational impact, a lasting impact for generations. All you have to do is go out and do something absolutely horrific. And it's kind of like kids in school, you know, who are ignored by their parents. You know, there's that Elie Wiesel quote of, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. So if you feel like you are indifferent to the world, you know, hate or negative is better than indifference. So, you know, kids in school who are ignored by their parents, a lot of times they get in trouble because if they get sent to the principal's office and the parents have to come in and bail them out, if the parent is yelling at them and the parent's there, that's better than the parent being absent. So I do think that a lot of these mass shooters are people who just don't have any impact on the world. So then they say, well, I'm worthless, I should just kill myself. But if I kill myself, that horrible concept of suicide, if I kill myself, no one will even care, no one will even notice. So it makes it almost worse. So instead, I'm gonna have a massive negative impact on the world. Excuse me. This young man's 20 years old, so he also grew up in the past, 8 years of constant bombardment of media telling him that Donald Trump is literally Hitler and an existential threat. So maybe in his head he's thinking, if I kill this Hitler character, I kill this very negative character in the world, then I will be lifted up as a hero. That concept, if you could go back in time and take a clear shot at Hitler, a reasonable person would say yes, and then they would go down in history as a hero. If the person who put a bullet in Adolf Hitler is a hero to all. So maybe it's him going out to try and be a hero, or maybe it's just him trying to make an impact on the world. But that seems like a more legitimate, more reasonable approach than some sort of, you know, cabal of people twisting their mustache hoping to get rid of Donald Trump. You know, John Hinckley, the last president that was shot was Ronald Reagan in 1981, and it was by a guy named John Hinckley. John Hinckley shot the president to impress an actress named Jodie Foster. Like, that's not reasonable. He said, if I shoot the president, then she will notice me, and then we can go off and live a wonderful life together. Like, that's crazy. You know, that's crazy. And mass shooters, kind of by definition, are crazy. You know, if you take crazy as a definition of like not fitting in with the world and making logical sense and stuff like that. Now, I tend to lean on the side of, this was a young man who was very lost, very nihilistic, very just hopeless about the world and wanted to make an impact. And this would be a massive impact. I mean, it would shake the world. If you can have, you know, be known around the world. We all know his name now. You know, Nicholas Cruz, before he shot up Parkland, he made a video on his phone. He grabbed his phone. He goes, my name's Nicholas Cruz. You don't know who I am, but you will. And that says something. It's like you just feel invisible in the world. And then all of a sudden you're known. That is attractive to someone who doesn't have any kind of moral compass, doesn't have any kind of understanding of you know, the negatives and the finality of what could happen if they do something so horrible. But I also don't want to discount the possibility or the reality that the deep state elements of that do exist. There are people who are very, very powerful who are not in elected positions. And JFK assassination is a good example of that. There's just a lack of transparency throughout history of explaining, why this happens. There's a lot of questions, and when questions go unanswered, then people start to fill in the blanks. Something I always say is where ambiguities exist, assumptions are made. So on the shooter side, I do think that is just a lost young man. I think that is Occam's razor. I think that's the most likely thing, is this is just a young man who is very, very lost and wants to make an impact on the world for one reason or another. Now, on the side of the protection, how did this even go down? There's so many elements of it, but I lean on the side of ineptitude. Top to bottom, standards have been continuously dropping in everything from K through 12 education when it comes to standards about showing up on time and grades and standardized tests and stuff like that, all the way up to the military. I have a lot of friends in the military who talk about how the standards are dropping for the requirements for running and push-ups and pull-ups and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's an element that gets discussed a lot right now about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that is part of it, but it's part of a bigger concept of just lowering standards and instead of striving for excellence. The women who were assigned to Donald Trump, there's a whole bunch of stuff about the women. Why were there women Secret Service agents that seemed to be inept? They couldn't holster their gun. Their gun was kind of back instead of being close in the front. It was back kind of behind their butt, so they couldn't holster their sidearm. They were kind of fumbling around and stuff like that. Also, the women were small. Donald Trump's a big guy. I just see him at this convention. He's a big guy. He's 6'1", 6'2". He's 250 pounds or something like that. He's a big person, and the job of a Secret Service agent is to become a bullet bag. It's to get as big as possible. When the Reagan shooting, I watched an analysis of that. When the shots start firing, one of the Secret Service agents makes himself big. He almost looks like a gorilla. He blows himself up, holds his, opens himself up to soak up as many bullets as possible. That's the job. So to have someone guarding a big body who has a small body does not make sense. I think that female Secret Service agents could be doing other things. They could be looking at the perimeter. They could be astute to small intricacies and stuff like that. But as far as being on the body itself, on their principal, on the president or the former president, just doesn't make a lot of sense. And the women were fumbling around and stuff like that. But if you take race and you take gender, you take all of that out, identity markers don't matter when the job really matters. When it comes down to a surgeon, your mom needs a surgery and they say, oh, here's the surgeon, they fit these identity markers. You're like, I don't care. I don't care, because surgery is a really important job. And when there are these quotas, the Secret Service director, who is female, when she came in to the position, she said her goal is to have 30% female Secret Service agents. It should never be like that. It should never be, I want 30% of black or white or male or female. It should always be based on competency. The job is too important for the stability of our country. Because if the president gets shot or a candidate like Donald Trump gets shot, the stability of our nation goes really, really south really, really quick. So it's an extremely important job. So the issue with diversity quotas is it's a math problem, and it sounds like it's emotional, like it could be racist or sexist to say let's not have quotas, or it could be a positive thing to say let's have quotas. But it's a math problem, because if you look at pre-K teachers are something like 95% female. So if a nursery school says we're going to hire 10 teachers for next year, and we want it to be 5 men and 5 women, this is where it gets into probability. You might have 50 women apply, and you pick the best 5. And you might have 7 men apply, and you pick the best 5. Just the probability. You might get 5 great men. You might, absolutely. But you do that not just in one place, but you do that across the board. The probability is that you are going to get better candidates when you pick 5 out of 50 than you would getting 5 out of 7. And so they're going to pick the best, but if they have to fit this quota, they're going to pick the best women. And we have to be careful about quotas, because quotas also will eliminate people who should be in that position. Economist Glenn Lowry talked about how quotas for positions like college professors are going to inherently be anti-Semitic, because if you have to fill this position with the best and brightest, the chances that those people will be Jewish are just higher for a whole bunch of different reasons, cultural reasons and biological reasons, all kinds of stuff, okay? So you were going to discriminate based on them being Jewish because, oh, we already have too many Jews in here, so we can't allow any more. So it gets really, really sticky. And DEI is something that sounds good, but I just talked to someone who's very in favor of DEI, and I said, do you know what equity means? What is equity? And she was like, well, it means like, everyone's treated the same as equality. No, it's not the same as equality. Inequity is actually unequal by definition. Equity is equality of outcome. We get this number of men, this number of women, this number of Asians, this number of black people, whatever it might be, white people, whatever it is, okay? Equality is equality of opportunity. We give everyone the opportunity. Same playing field, whoever wins, whoever is who wins. So you want to take race, gender, and all that stuff out and go right towards the best for the job. And that's really, really important. But it wasn't just the women that were inept. It wasn't just the women who failed here. Clearly, it was a failure because the only reason that Donald Trump is alive right now is because he turned his head, a slight bit at the very last moment. I mean, it seems divine. It's unbelievable how that happened. And it was almost perfect, by the way. Like, the fact that if it would have missed him completely, it wouldn't have as much of an impact. And if it would have hit him in a way that like his ear flew off and everything like that, then it would have had a bigger impact that would have like deformed him and stuff like that. But it seems like it just like nicked him. And so we got enough blood to like get the photo op. It's really unbelievable. But a lot of men dropped the ball as well. So one of the stories that has come out is that a police officer climbed up the ladder, got on the roof, saw Matthew Crooks with the gun, and then got scared and went back down the ladder. That's what happened at, I believe it was Parkland shooting, is these police officers were scared to go in. Look, I'd be scared to get into a gunfight too, but that's not my job. Their job is to potentially get into a gunfight. That's why they have the gun on their hip. So this seems like a lot of people who are untrained and unfamiliar with the weight of the job. There was a real problem. This is more stupidity and ineptitude. There were people from Homeland Security there. There were local police. There were state police. There were Secret Service. And they were all on different radio frequencies. So even when that police officer saw that guy on the roof, he was radioing to people, and it was only to the other people who were officers on his radio frequency. So there was a lack of communication. There was no one like overseeing all of this that was like, hey, we all got to be in communication with one another. The protective sniper who was on the opposing roof, who ended up shooting at him, didn't have the confidence to take the shot. And Tim Kennedy, who's an Army Ranger and has done security detail and stuff like that, he just said, I don't think that dude's ever been in a gunfight. And I think that's exactly accurate. I think that the idea of pulling that trigger and taking a life when you've never done it is difficult. That's why I don't sign up for a job like that. But that is the job. The job is to take the shot. The job is to make yourself big and become a bullet bag. That's the job. The job is to protect the principal, the person, the president, the former president, whatever it is. That's the job. And they failed because a bullet got to them. So when you fail like that, it has to be, this is your job. You failed your job. You can't do this job anymore. The women who couldn't holster their pistol and stuff like that, clearly they didn't get reps. You get reps, a lot of reps, to practice the thing over and over and over again. You're like Alex Honnold climbing the wall, climbing, El Capitan or something like that. Is you just do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it should be all training. That's what the Navy SEALs do. It's all training. That's what the police across America don't do. It's not enough training. It's very little training for the intensity of the job. And it seems like these people were untrained. And so there was the DEI element, but then there was a lot of men who were untrained. And then clearly the leadership. The leadership did not have a plan. You could hear them all around saying like, where do we go next? Where do we go next? What happens next? Like, they were lost. I don't think it's because they don't care. I don't think it's because they didn't try. I think that they're ill-equipped. And not all people are equal. There's two different ways you can wash out of like the Navy SEALs. One is you give up. You say, this is too hard. I'm ringing the bell. Wherever you go to do all these really difficult exercises and stuff, they bring a bell with you. You ring that twice, you go, you get coffee and donuts, and you can just chill. And it's right there all the time. And sometimes people just give up and they ring the bell. And sometimes people's bodies break. They just can't do it. And I think that if you took everyone there that was there, this is Occam's razor again, if you took everyone that was there and you say, would you did you do everything you could? Would you do everything you could to protect your principal and Donald Trump? They would all say yes. Just some of them can't do it. So how do you get better at things? You practice over and over and over again. You do perfect practice. Practices make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you holster your gun and pull it out. And you holster your gun and pull it out so many times that it becomes impossible to screw it up. I tell my students sometimes, like, if you learn how to juggle, you have 20 minutes to learn how to juggle, and then you have to do it during the Super Bowl halftime show, you'd screw it up, even if you got it a couple times alone in your room. But if at the Super Bowl halftime, if I said, tie your shoes, could you do that? They're like, yeah. So what's the difference between tying your shoes and juggling is the reps. So people who are in these positions need to get so many reps. My friends in the military and stuff, they shoot 1,000 rounds several times a week. I mean, they just get so good. They get so used to it. And a lot of them have also been in combat. So you get used to the intensity of, I'm in a gunfight, there's bullets whizzing past me and stuff like that. It becomes kind of the norm. And so I think that there's an element of this that's kind of like September 10th. September 10th, 2001, we felt very safe. People were bringing knives with 4-inch blades on planes and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, the World Trade Center collapsed and the Pentagon got hit. And we go, oh my gosh, we're so dumb. We're so ill-equipped and inept. We need to get better. And now they up security. I think that this was an absolute wake-up call about the importance of good security. And there's all of these reasons that led to the security being terrible. But there is a September 10th feeling to Saturday when Donald Trump was shot, that now things are going to be different. I'm at the Republican convention now, and security is tight. It's really, really tight. Now, I don't know if it would have been this tight had that not happened. So it's kind of like how, people fall off their bikes and they don't wear a helmet and they crack their head open. And then from now on, I'm going to wear a helmet. But like, things oftentimes in history have to go wrong before they get better. It's something I talk about in Paradox a lot. There's a pattern that comes up all the time is we have to wait till things get really, really serious in order to change. You shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that. It's like I say to my kids, you shouldn't do that. And then they fall or they get hurt or something. I'm like, oh, I told you. Yeah, well, sometimes you have to learn things the hard way. And I think that the assassination attempt of Donald Trump is about as positive a situation as it could be to still learn things the hard way. But everyone who was there that failed in the leadership and everything like that, the people who failed on the individual level and the people who failed at the top leadership level, I think absolutely need to take full responsibility, and they need to leave their jobs. Because I don't think it's something that you just get better at, but there are a lot of people out there who can do those jobs well. You bring in some sort of bull moose in there, just like, hey, look, we're changing things right now. We're gonna come in and we're gonna do all this kind of stuff. We're gonna up the game a lot. And that's the responsibility element. That's the stuff that Jocko Willink talks about, is this, extreme ownership. The director of the Secret Service needs to take extreme ownership and say, I failed. And if you fail in something that big, that the only reason Donald Trump is alive is because of luck, essentially, and nothing that your department did, then you need to step down. I think that those people need to fail. It's kind of like in business. Like, if you can't hack it, your business fails. That's it. There's no like second chance in a lot of ways. And we do get a second chance because the bullet didn't hit, the lizard part of Donald Trump's brain, the back, core part of Donald Trump's brain, where he would have absolutely died. But I think that this has to be the norm in society. The norm in society, this is a great wake-up call for us to say, excellence should not be vilified, and meritocracy matters. And if that means that things don't look as diverse, then what we have to do is we have to say, what is preventing people with certain identity markers from getting to these positions? And we go back to the root cause of it. If the hurdles are too big to jump, you don't lower the hurdles. What you do is you strengthen their legs. That's what we need to do. We need to get better candidates who fit these identity markers then. You don't lower the standards, and we absolutely have been lowering the standards clearly. So equity, by definition, crushes excellence. There's a great book by Kurt Vonnegut called Harrison Bergeron, and I highly recommend it. And it's all about the concept of equity and how people who are the best and brightest are the ones who are crushed the most by equity in socialist countries and stuff like that. That's why people who were the best and brightest wanted to leave, because there is no avenue for excellence and then the positives that comes from excellence, and the pay that comes from excellence, and all the rewards that come from excellence, and things like that, when we look for equity. In an equitable society, the idea is we all end up in the same place at the end. Those are the words of our Vice President, Kamala Harris. So if I would play LeBron James in basketball, we end up scoring the same amount of points. Where equality is, LeBron James and I play basketball by the same rules. The three-point line's the same, and the hoop's the same height and everything like that, but he's going to destroy me, and it's going to look bad because everyone in the NBA is going to be big and strong, and not a lot of small Asian dudes, not a lot of Orthodox Jewish people, and not a lot of women are going to be in the NBA, and that could look bad, but we know that that is the way it needs to be for the NBA, and we need to take that same approach to everything else in society. So my final analysis of what happened, and I don't know, but what my final analysis is that it's a complete lack of ability and lowered standards for security and law enforcement across the board. So it is a fumbling ineptitude of protection, and it is a lost, nihilistic young man. That is what I think Occam's razor would lead me to believe about what happened on Saturday, and it's a great opportunity to learn and become better. Thanks for taking the time to listen to my thoughts on this. If you want to get more of this critical thinking approach, check out williamroosh.com and my online critical thinking education platform, patterdocs.com.